Preparatory work. Pay attention to the installation site, free of dust. Keep a dry and ventilated environment. Check whether the installation tools and terminal accessories are complete. Check that the front connector, rear connector, arrestor matches the cable. Assembly sequence diagram. Joined after repeated installation of multiple branches. Product introduction. Fully shielded touchable connector, rated current 630A, rated voltage 15 kV with 8.7 15th kV cross-linked cable. Suitable for cable section 35 to 400 square millimeters for box transformer, ring network cabinet, cable branch box, and other power supply system. The relationship between the inner diameter of the stress cone and the cross-section of the cable is shown below. The cross-section of the stress cone is stamped with the cross-section mark, so please check carefully before installation and use. Install cable shrink preparation. Strip the outer sheath of the cable to the required length based on the actual installation condition. Leave 30 mm steel armor at the bottom and strip off the remaining steel armor. Leave 10 mm inner sheath at the root. Strip off the remaining inner sheath of the cable and strip off the filler. Be careful not to scratch the copper shield of the cable. Separate the three faces and wrap the copper shield at the end of each cable with PVC tape. Grounding. Wipe off the dirt on the surface of the cable sheath at the 50 mm stripping point. Sand the oxidized layer and paint on the surface of the steel armor with coarse sandpaper. Fix the armored grounding wire to the steel armor with constant force spring. Wrap the constant force spring and steel armor with PVC tape. Embedded the copper shielding ground wire in the three-phase split of the cable with a triangular pad cone and fix it on the copper shielding layer with a constant force spring. Wrap the constant force spring with PVC tape. Fill the gap between the two constant force springs with filling glue and wind the constant force spring. Wrap a layer of insulating self-adhesive tape around the filler rubber. Lap the outer sheath 10 mm. Install the cold shrink breakout and cold shrink tube. Put 3 shrinkable breakout into the root. Pull out the support strip. When pulling, the support strip should be pulled first, and then the root support strip should be pulled counterclockwise when pulling the support strip. In accordance with the correct direction, insert the cold shrink insulation tube. Cold shrink tube and support sleeve finger lap 20 to 30 mm. Pull out the support strip. Copper shielding and semiconductive layers processing. Check the length between the top of the cable and the shrinkage tube with a ruler and cut off the excessive shrinkage tube according to the length of the ruler. Determine the length of the copper shielding layer according to the scale. Mark and fix the copper shooting layer with PVC. Pay attention not to hurt the semiconductive layer when peeling the copper shooting layer, and mark the face respectively. Determine the stripping length of the semiconductive layer according to the scale. Mark and strip the semiconductive layer. Do not hurt the insulation layer when stripping the semiconductive layer. The end of the semiconductive layer is chamfered with a tool to smooth the transition between the semiconductive layer and the insulating layer. Add 3 mm to the depth of the lug hole and cut the insulation of each face. Sand the surface of the insulation layer with fine sandpaper. When polishing the insulation layer, be careful not to polish to the half-guide layer. Wrap semiconductive tape as per drawing. Insulation of stress cone. Apply silicone grease evenly to the core insulation of the cable and to the cleaned bore of the stress cone. Push the stress cone firmly into the cable core insulation until the section of the cold shrink tube presses against the internal step surface of the stress cone. Check the length of the cable core insulation exposed to the stress cone. The size deviation control within 5 mm. Otherwise, recheck the cable stripping size and semiconductive tape step winding position and size to meet the requirements. Crimp terminal lug. Sleeve the terminal lug. Press the terminal lug according to the national standard requirements and remove the terminal burrs. Note: when crimping the terminals, make sure that the direction of the terminal hole is the same as the direction of the connecting sleeve. Install the front connector, rear connector, and rear connector arresters. Note: the corresponding contact parts of the product must be cleaned and coated with silicone grease respectively. The connectors must be pushed into place and the terminals ensured to be pressed tightly. Clean the outer surface of the stress cone and the inner hole of the front connector with cleaning paper, and evenly apply silicone grease to the outer surface of the stress cone. Push the cable into the lower hole of the front connector until the terminal lug is in good contact with the shield inside the front connector. Note: the direction of the terminal hole is the same as the direction of the connecting sleeve, and the terminal must not be moved downward, otherwise it is easy to scratch the stud when pushing it in, and its conductive copper shavings will fall into the assembly hole of the connector, which will affect the insulation. Clean the fully shielded connector mounting holes and apply silicone grease to the sleeve assembling surface. Screw the M16, M12 multiplies 65 bolts into the sleeve holes and push the front connector with the cable firmly onto the sleeve. Note: the connector must be pushed into place. Put on flat washers and spring washers, and press the terminal lug tightly with nuts. If you continue to assemble the real connector or connector arrestor after the front connector, use the connecting rod to screw the terminal in the front connector into the M16 M12 multiply 65 stud. Note: this step does not allow the installation of flat washers, spring washers, and nuts. Push the rear connector off the silicone grease, cable handling, connector assembly as above, or connector arrestor into the front connector tail hole. Repeat step 3 to 9 for multiple connector branch assemblies. Follow the 9 deft steps after multi-branch assembly. Thread a silicone-coated insulating plug into the connector end hole. Screw and screw with a screwdriver and tighten with a tool. Press the sealing bubble on the head of the insulating plug. Connect the grounding hole of the fully shielded connector to the grounding wire. Good ground. Wrap the phase ribbon, secure the cable, and ground the cable ground wire. Insulation finish. Clean up the side. Thanks for watching.